record to the cloud. There you go.
Well, welcome to the November 30th, 2021 session of TangerineSDR and HamSci technical session. My name is Dave, KB0S, and this week mostly been doing, we had some house construction. We built a new front porch, stoop, I guess you call it. So we poured concrete, and then now we put brick and pavers on top. We have a bit more to go. We'll see if we'll get it done this year or it'll be early next year. Also visited with people for dinners, so not a lot of radio work. Hopefully this week we'll get into some. So next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thank you very much, Dave. Things are going fine here. I ate a lot of turkey last week, which I'm sure a lot of people did. I also I finished up the first draft of the LSTID geophysical research letters manuscript I've been working on for like the last 2 years. So I actually have a draft of it done that I have sent to some co-authors. So that's making progress there. Been working with Dev on his papers. I've been working on getting the HamSci workshop contracts in place too. That's, still dragging out, but working on it. And just continuing to work on projects. So that's been trying to wrap up this semester and get ready for AGU. So W2NF back to net.
Very good. And next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening to the net. I worked on testing out a batch processing thing I have that will process a whole bunch of the PSK files into the format we're going to use for doing the data analysis. And the one remaining ticklish thing that I have is that Gladstone software very often splits the data for a given day across different SQL files. And so I process the two SQL files, and now I have, and sort them down by date, and I have two files for the same date, which then you have to identify those files, and they have the same name. You got to copy them together and sort them again. So there, it's a bit of a mess. But we'll get it figured out, I guess. The only other thing I did was I got my break station running again, running Spectrum data collection. As I suspected, the Adafruit GPS card that I had died. That's why it wasn't working. Bear in mind that some of these very low cost, low budget things that we're putting together for some of these projects, you got to be prepared for the fact that cheap electronics tend to break more often than your HP stuff. Okay, so we make sure we set expectations with our illustrious users who are going to use this stuff. Bear in mind, you got to be prepared to debug it, because this isn't commercial equipment that you're putting together. It's experimental. So that's just my 2 cents. Back to net.
Well, fine business, and I agree with you. Next on the list, we have Dan N4XWE. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, all. Let's see. I've been working quite a bit on scripts lately, and I have almost everything working properly on Bullseye, the latest Raspberry Pi release. Bullseye doesn't work perfectly. It has a few warts here and there, but the scripts seem to be doing okay. A couple of days ago, I was actually able to get a script working that compiles Dream, the DRM module, so that you can actually hook up, well, I'm using the IQ2 with PSWS, but I think anything that provides an audio stream will work okay. Anyway, that's about it from here. Back to you, Dave.
Well, fine business. Next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I've been doing battle with NVIDIA's wonderful products, and but I think I've finally won the war, and also that evil beaver that they make you use for a lot of things, the Ubuntu 1804. But I think I got it all squared. And I've also been working with Amartya on a project, and we're kind of hopefully getting into a pace of meeting every Saturday afternoon to work on stuff for him. So that's it for me.
Fine business. And next on the list is David in N1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone. Of course, last week was kind of an abbreviated week, but I guess the big deal for me was I finally got our thermal chamber to behave, which I've been trying to get stuff into for a while. So I've got a bunch of things I want to put through there, not the least of which is the magnetometer. And working on documentation for our work down in Antarctica, which hopefully will eventually power some of this stuff. So back to net.
Well, fine business. Next on the list is David Waugh, KE8QEP. Go ahead, David.
Hello, everyone. So I've been still examining or trying to figure out exactly where my 60 hertz noise signal is coming from. And Jules was kind enough to make and send me a little probe here that's got a search coil and amplifier. It's sort of like the Bassmatic 76. It does it all. And so I've been just experimenting with that. And of course, you know, the more I examine things, the more I figure out the depth of what I don't know. And so that's interesting, but you know, so but we're making some progress, I think, and Jules has been very kind to help me with this, and I'm gonna try to get some better measurements and then hopefully get a post together to, you know, share with the group as to what's actually going on or not going on. Back to that.
Well, fine business. And remember, the experiments you're doing are reducing the amount of unknown material. Anyway, so next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think my own accomplishment this week for me was a big thing. Finally got an indoor HF antenna up, so I no longer have to sit outside on the porch and operate. Kind of impractical since it's been pretty darn cold and snowy, but it operates about as well as you would expect an 8-foot tall vertical to work on 80 to 10 meters. But at least I'm on the air, transmitting and receiving both. So that's a big win. So that's it. Back to net.
Okay, and next on the list is Hyomin Kim, KD2MCR.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. This is Hyomin Kim. This weekend there will be a APS Mid-Atlantic, so American Physics Society Mid-Atlantic section meeting will be held at Rutgers University here in New Jersey. So I've been working on presentation. And speaking of the Antarctic project that I'm doing with Dave McGaw here, unfortunately, the shipment so the cargo that we shipped out 3 weeks ago is still stuck in LA waiting for the airplane. So we are one of the, we are actually impacted by the current supply chain issue. I think even UPS is not able to ship things in a proper manner right now. So I'm very concerned about the progress that we are making right now. But other than that, yep, that's all I can report at the moment.
Well, very good. And next on the list is James KG4DSG. Go ahead.
Good evening, Dave and the group. Listening in as usual and trying to stay warm this week. Back to the net.
Okay. Next on the list is Jim K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening. Well, my biggest accomplishment last week, I think, was eating too much food. We had a huge group over here at our house. Fortunately, our daughters did most of the work. Let's see, as far as projects go, I've been having some trouble with my Grape One. Actually, FL Digi seems to be jumping frequency. I don't know whether I do something to make it jump that I'm not aware of, or whether it jumps on its own. It jumped on me again a few days ago, and I've been trying to figure out why that happens. Not any progress at the moment. It has happened a couple of times, actually, when I have been in the shack and on the air, but there have been a lot of times I've been in the shack and on the air on the same frequency, and it hadn't happened. So I don't know what's going on there. Still working on that as I can, and still need to convert over to the RF capture. Haven't gotten to that yet, although I have the pieces. And I did decide to do one non-ham, non-personal space weather station project this week. I've hopefully just about finished getting an old TIAC reel-to-reel tape recorder working. Back to net.
Well, that's fun. Good job. And next on the list is Joe W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
See if I can figure out how to unmute here. Jim, thank you for the information. Really appreciate that. It got me going here. And my problem with FL Digi is if I'm not really careful when I delete the little plots that end up on top of FL Digi in the display for the Raspberry Pi. If I'm not real careful about that, I put lines on the FL Digi and it tends to change the frequency. So that's a bit of a problem. Been fighting mice here, both the kind that connects to a computer and the kind that sneak in your house as the weather's turning cold. So that's been kind of interesting. Got 5 so far, and one dead mouse with a long cord that plugs in a computer in the trash can. So I guess I just wore the thing out. And working on the presentation for the AGU meeting coming up, and it's making good progress. Thanks, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list is Jonathan KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I've been pretty busy this week. What I did was I kind of finalized everything in my PSWS Raspberry Pi box. I finalized all the software and everything else, all the scripts, everything that I wanted done. I was able to back up all the scripts and the config files. So they are backed up. I was also able to back up the SD card. That is also backed up. It's also compressed. It compresses down to a 1.5 gigabyte file. So if anyone else wants to build one of these things, they could just use my image. I took everything outside and hooked everything up for a test. Everything seemed to work pretty well. Spherics were kind of minimal, as they are this time of year. There's not a lot of thunderstorm activity in this hemisphere. And there was a lot of noise in my local VLF spectrum. I'm not sure why, but everything seems to be working. The event detector, detected a false event. Every file gets written like it should. So I think all of the software and the hardware is working well. After I tested it, I brought it back in, took everything apart to get the SD card out to make a backup. So when I assembled everything again, I just wanted to verify that the timing was still working, and it started giving me trouble again. So I ordered a SMB pigtail, which hopefully that should keep the timing reliable. So I have to install that, and should be good to go. And I also wanted to mention Dave Waugh, my VLF receivers are great tools, and in the looking for VLF hum. I have a couple portables that I built. One of them that I use quite a bit, and I was able to tell when there was a power outage, which of the power lines by my house were actually dead. So there were two access lines that were that are on both sides of the house, and they were both dead during this power outage. There was a pretty big transmission tower, and that was still going strong. So with the VLF receiver, it's a great tool to look for 60 hertz issues and where it's coming from, and that's kind of how I do a site survey. Other than that, back to the net.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Jules K2KGJ. Go ahead, Jules.
Good evening. Other than the snowstorm that we got through here Friday night into Saturdays, which required a fair amount of time taking care of the 6 inches of accumulation to keep the driveway clear. The rest of the week was spent on several projects. I was able to complete a three orthogonal axis mount in a plastic block for a relatively inexpensive flux gate magnetometer that I'm trying to operate as a shared operation on the existing Cat5 cable running out to one of my mag installations. I still has some engineering to complete the circuitry for it, but I think it's working well. The device that I sent to Dave Waugh, the nice thing about that is that it will measure the field direction. So the field direction is along the long axis of that probe, and you can actually get the field direction with that, as well as the amplitude, which will go down to a few nanoteslas actually, which is in the low milligauss range. But it's a relatively cheap thing to make. The most work was the 800 turn coil with a Faraday shield on it, on a hand winder. But it works, and it gives you a nice image on the scope, which Dave has a portable setup. That's about it from here. Thank you, Dave. That's about it from here. I'll send it back to the net. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, very good. And next on the list is Michael, AAAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Dave. We had turkey for supper tonight. It's almost gone. One more meal, and I think we'll finish it off. So if I'm not here next time, you know that was a poor decision. I'd forgotten about the eclipse measurement today, UTC today. So I downloaded the SNASH. That looks neat. I'm gonna have to use it on Windows, I guess. What else? Oh, my Marconi 2018 signal generator had the magic smoke escape,
Oh,
literally. So I've been without a signal generator for, well, an accurate signal generator for quite a while. But I finally got an IFR, what is it? 1200S coming. My friend's bringing it over this week. I'm excited. Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you.
well, fine business. Well, Tom, we're at the end of the list. And so next is Tom N5EG.
Oh, good evening, Dave and the group. Let's see, I've been working on the driver code. I'm breaking up the various SPI and I2C drivers by type inside the code for the FPGA because they have different replies. Bill, one thing that on the module read, if we read the ident ROM, we get a 9-byte response. And normally the module read commands provide a 1-byte response back. And I was wondering if it would be okay to just reply with all 9 bytes in the module, the read reply response to the module read. Other than that, that's about it for the week.
Well, fine business. So I think we're at the end of the list. So we're open for general discussion.
I should say that Scotty emailed me saying he wasn't feeling too well tonight. So he sends his regrets, but plans on being here next week. And he said he's continuing to make progress on the adapter board.
Would you mind putting in an email to me what
Yeah.
the issue of that so that I can take a look? I mean, if you want to make a suggested change to the spec to accommodate that, I'm all for it.
Okay. Yeah, so typically the module read has a read response that answers back with a 1-byte response to a read from a particular address. In this case, the response is 9 bytes because it's the ID that's inside the ID ROM. And they're not from different addresses. They're all from the same one address. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to reply. And I think it's just easiest to put all 9 bytes in the read response. I'll send you an email outlining a way it might work.
That'll work. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is one of those weeks where on Thursday, we could hardly wait for the turkey to arrive. And on Monday, we could hardly wait for the turkey to leave.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, as I mentioned in the chat, when I'm cooking, we do duck.
You still do
love
the
duck.
pies?
What's that?
Do you still do the pies?
We did a pie.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't do a pumpkin pie, but I do have a pie pumpkin that I want to do something with. Turns out you can buy pie pumpkins that look just like the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, but they're actually edible.
Right. Yeah, we did a squash pie, which tasted very much like pumpkin pie this summer.
Yes. Well, I understand much of the canned filling that you get is actually squash.
I think you're right.
Some
yeah.
other squash other than
right.
a pumpkin.
Finished up with a key lime pie tonight.
I still have a pecan pie in my refrigerator.
I think my wife accumulated 7 pies for our dinner. She's much more focused on the desserts than everything else, but and so it takes a while to dispose of them.
I know that Dave KD0EAG went to more than one dinners this weekend.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Well, you had at least 2 families worth of them.
Yep, yep. And there was another one I managed to talk my way out of. So
Well, I think we're making progress on people getting registered for AGU and that sort of thing. Because I think last week I was trying to work with Joe and talk with Jules about AGU and they were having trouble, but both of you have gotten that worked out now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm just working on downloading my presentation.
Okay, great.
Yeah, mine seems to work too. Thanks, Nathaniel.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, I guess I was starting to look at the what we have to do for the presentations this year. It just seems it's going to be a little confusing for me because it's hybrid. So they it looks like they want the oral presenters to do both a pre-recorded video and to actually present in person. So I have to figure that out. Kyoman, what are you doing for AGU?
What am I doing for AGU? So I'm
Yeah.
running a session as a chair to the session that is focused on research, like geospace science from the polar regions. So anything that studies geospace environment from the polar region, that's going to be the topic that we'll be discussing in our session. So then I'll be presenting a poster. So chair and a presenter.
Yeah. And then you're also doing something for the mini geospace environment modeling GEM workshop right before AGU too, right?
Right. So traditionally we run a small workshop prior to the AGU meeting, typically on Sunday, to discuss more focused topics. So one of the sessions that I'm organizing at the mini workshop, GEM workshop, Geospace Environment Modeling workshop, is the interhemispheric MI coupling, so magnetospheric ionospheric coupling processes. So historically, instrumentations has been focused in the northern hemisphere, assuming that, hopefully that things are kind of mirrored, which is not, because Earth magnetic field is not perfectly dipole, asymmetrical. So now then we try to promote scientists to look at the other hemispheres by establishing more extensive network there, or implementing more aggressive modeling so that we can simulate more realistic situation where things are not so symmetrical. So that's one thing that we've been trying to do.
Now, what kind of instrumentation are you trying to have conjugate?
The one thing that I'm directly involved in is actually magnetometers, but SuperDAN, which Nathaniel is much more familiar with, is going to be one of the good instrumentation that we can have simultaneously in both hemispheres, because magnetometer and SuperDAN do not care too much about sunlight
Right.
or dark ionosphere. Auroral imager would be really nice, but unfortunately it's picky because it operates only in the nighttime. So unless you can pick very good conjunction points, simultaneous observation of auroral image doesn't really work. GPS would be a good one. GPS scintillation monitor or GPS tech monitor, total electron contents would be good. But as you know, Dave, going to Antarctica is very costly. doing
Right.
something there is very costly. So we are slowly moving to do something on Antarctica right now.
Right. Now, of course, we Dartmouth has instruments at South Pole, and we're trying to put in a conjugate receiver up in Canada at
Right.
the conjugate magnetic point.
Right. So Jim LaBelle has contacted me when actually I was at Iqaluit, Canada. He actually asked me to, I think that's the gadget that he provided, I think.
Right, that's what we're working on.
Yeah, I tried to do some site survey to see if that location is proper in terms of noise activity, I think.
Right.
The station that I'm talking about is located in Iqaluit, Canada, which is the capital of Nunavut Territory. When I was there for the first time, 2006, I think, it wasn't that civilized. Now, 10 years after 10 years, now there's Starbucks there. There's actually bumper to bumper traffic. So it's not really environmentally, I mean,
that just means the two cars ran into each other.
Yeah, not a good place for, I don't know, whatever Jim LaBelle is trying to do or whatever.
Well, we're trying to put one of our HF receivers there. We're actually right now favoring the other site that's a little farther away, but it seems to be more conjugate to South Pole. But yeah, one either a Iqaluit or we can't pronounce the other one.
Yeah, I know, like a lot of TK sounds and stuff.
Right.
Like
But it turns out Iqaluit's got a problem for us in that they've got both a high power non-directional beacon and a high power AM radio station. Whereas the other one only has one of those. I think it only has an AM broadcast. It doesn't have a, no, it's the other way around. I think it has an NDB, but not a.
The other problem is that
broadcast.
NRCan, Natural Resources Canada, which is the government, operates the full-blown magnetometer station there. It's actually a very high-end magnetometer station. But the problem is about like 100 or 200 yards away, there's a huge power plant.
Oh dear.
That's not, how did that happen? Which came first?
Well, observatory came first. And then Iqaluit became a huge hot spot for whatever. I mean, sightseeing. It's, you know, can you imagine that it's small, it used to be a small town for, you know, Inuits, but now a lot of travel attraction, like just maybe like, you know, hunters, for example, like a lot of hunters like to go there. So if you're in the airplane, it's full of like, you know, people with camouflage suits and rifles in the cargo area, a lot of stuff. A lot of conferences and stuff like that. So it became much more civilized than we would been thought before. So not an ideal place for what we try to do, unless you find some other place farther away from the main town area. But doing something like remote area is always challenging logistically. Everything over there is expensive. You know, getting a proper internet connection is very expensive. Hiring someone who knows what they are doing is very challenging. Anything, and then local vandalism, that's another big concern. In one of the stations where we installed a magnetometer, 200-meter long cable was completely cut and stolen. Maybe they found that, oh, this copper wire is pretty valuable, so they just decide to cut it and then took it. So and then the NRCan government observatory building seems like it was used as a rifle target, so you can see bullet holes here and there. So not an easy place to do something.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which site we have abandoned up in northern Canada because there was so much vandalism. We couldn't keep it running.
Yeah, vandalism has been a big problem there. People over there do not have good, I don't know what to say, like they don't really respect the government or
Right.
others' property
And
that much.
I think they're just plain bored.
Yeah, that's another reason. They're very bored. So anything that is,
There's not much to do up there, so they like to shoot at things.
yeah, anything that looks kind of alien to them is going to be something fun for them. So yeah.
Now, you're talking about getting data back, internet and whatnot. That reminds me that I had at one time been talking to Bob Brunega, who started APRS. He's at Annapolis, of course. And his big idea is to send up a swarm of CubeSats to be able to bring data back. Since we don't seem to be getting NASA to do it for us.
Well, that sounds like Starlink.
It's similar, but you know, using amateur radio to bring scientific data back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how practical that is at this point, but a lot of CubeSats going up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you can launch them, if you can get them launched, you can collect the data through SatNavs. You know, just publicize that you've got something up there that you want to collect data, and it'll start coming in.
Yeah, getting data from those remote areas is kind of tricky.
Yeah, it's always been a problem. You know, South Pole is, of course, as many of us know, hit and miss. You only get it when the geosynchronous satellites are poking above the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that, it's pretty slow data rate. Now, the interesting thing there is that the Russians have always had polar satellites. Their TV broadcast is polar. If we were better friends, maybe we'd be able to use some of their satellites.
I wouldn't count on that for the next 4 years.
Yeah, not right now. But yeah, we actually had a outfit in our local area that was building satellite dishes with 2-axis trackers to pick up the Russian satellites for people who were interested in staying up on that, you know, college Russian programs and things like that, being able to pick up the Russian broadcast.
Nathaniel, are you not coming to the APS meeting?
I'm not going to the APS. I know Gareth asked if I could speak at it, but I'm with the AGU travel and finishing up with the semester here, and it was just too much for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah, I'm really just trying to keep afloat right now.
Mm-hmm. I believe Diego will be presenting some of the ham site stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that will be really good. So yeah, Diego, Gareth, Bill Engelkey, Phil Erickson, Bob Gerzoff, and I, we have a Tuesday morning telecon where we're talking more about like the traveling atmospheric disturbances that we see in the RBN PSK reporter WhisperNet data. So yeah, that'll be good that he's presenting that. We're trying to get Diego started on trying to write it up into a paper too. So it will come eventually. Yeah, so I think in my involvement for EGU, I am co-convening on a couple of sessions. So I'm co-convening on the session that Jules and Joe are presenting in, and that's this MacGyver session. And then I'm also co-convening on a session on ionospheric modeling, I believe, HF ionospheric modeling. And then I'm presenting in a similar session as well. So Jules, how is your presentation coming?
Well, basically, I'm taking the same thing I did for for HAMSI and just making some changes in it and using that.
That sounds
So,
really good.
Yeah,
And I think it's only a 5-minute talk, right?
right.
Right. Yeah.
So I've compressed it a bit because that one did 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting format because I think everyone has 5 minutes, and then there's like 30 minutes at the end for open discussion. So I guess in some ways it's kind of like what we're doing here, where everyone goes around the room, gives a brief update on what they're doing, and then we have an open discussion at the end. I've never seen them do a session like this before, so it will be a little bit different from what I've seen. Joe, how is yours coming?
Slowly, but it's getting there. I'm ready to put it in a format like PowerPoint or PDF or something like that.
That sounds good.
I've got all the images. I finally got all those collected, and everything from starting out with transmitters and talking about the time and frequency stations, and then on to building the grape and results. So results as far as I'm concerned. Now I can't do the analysis, but I'll leave that up to you people.
That sounds good. If you'd like to send it to me to look at when you're ready, I'll be happy to look at it.
Yeah, I plan on doing that. See if you object to anything before I actually record it. Now I understand I've got 15 minutes to present this. You asked me at one time whether I wanted 15 or 30, and I opted for 15.
That was for EGU.
Yes.
Let me double check that.
Because I'm going to probably fill up a fair amount of 15 minutes.
I've
got
let me look at the schedule again, because they've changed things around.
Yeah, if you could let me do two, Nathaniel, I'm sort of planning on that 5-minute thing, but
Yeah,
I can change that too.
Well, let's take a look here. So, you are both in the MacGyver session.
Right.
And well, here, I'll let you guys keep talking. Give me a minute. I'm going to try to figure out the system and bring up the schedule.
I'm having all sorts of trouble bringing up anything at AGU website.
Yeah. I have to make sure. Might be the best thing to do might be to look at the scientific program. All AGU.
Yeah, I've got almost 24 slides, and some of them I go through pretty quickly.
Okay. Schedule.
Or not slides, but images.
Images, yeah. Search. Um, let's see here. So actually, you're listed here as a poster.
You're talking to me. I've been working on getting a poster for the opening image, but I just don't understand that edu thing at all.
No, and I don't totally either, but I will try. I will work on helping you figure it out. As I said,
What I've
this is
got
a
is probably 10 minutes of going through almost 24 slides, not slides, but images, and a very brief description of each one.
I think the good news is that if you have a poster, it's going to be, you won't be confined. And actually, Jules, you're in the poster session as well.
Well, poster's pretty limited.
Yes.
The PDF size, the maximum size of the PDF is, I think, 50 megs. And you, in order to get everything on, what is it, 3 foot by 5 foot, in order to get all the images on, you really have to restrict the number of images you're including in that PDF, which, too many and you can't get the resolution, and there's no room for text.
On a 3 foot by 5 foot poster?
Well, that's what they claim anyway, yeah. I think I can squeeze in most everything, but right now it's in separate PDF files.
Yeah, I haven't. Okay, let me share my screen again. So here's what I've done. If I Google fall AGU, I can click on fall meeting, and then I hit schedule. I type full schedule, and then I view the scientific program. Once I'm in here, the way I found it, you can search for your name, but I search for my name for Zell, and then it comes up with the MacGyver session here. If I click the MacGyver session poster session, here's everything in the poster session. And so there's Joe's poster and there's Jules's poster. So, and if I click that, so there it is. Now, okay, today I learned that they have this thing called the presenter's journey, where presenter journey. So they have this grid that tells you what you're supposed to do based on what you are. So you are in what I think is a hybrid session and you're online. And so if you're a poster, so it says that you have to accept your presentation, which I think, and you have to upload your interactive online poster by December 7th. I don't know what they mean by an interactive online poster. Do you know
Right.
anything about that?
Nope.
Okay. And then you
Nathaniel?
yes.
I had spent a fair amount of time putting together about a 10-minute presentation. And this is a monumental change. I don't think I can do it on a poster.
If I help you with it, do you think that would work? Because I think it would, I think
Well,
I could.
I have the same complaint that Jules does, and that is there's, almost 24 slides or 24 images, and that's just not going to work on a poster.
Why wouldn't it?
It's just going to look like a jumbled up mess.
Well, you can do them serially. I mean, you can do it line by line.
I
mean,
also,
the simplistic view would be multiple horizontal lines, each with 4 or 5 images on it, depending on what you can do, and some text underneath.
yeah, I think it depends what they mean by interactive posters, because if it was like the iPoster last year, this is what the posters were like last year. And you could click any one of these columns and you could put, you can put multiple images on here, and you could easily have, 24 images on here, and it would not be a problem. So all AGU inter. So I think it is the same thing, because it says the iPoster sessions. So what you would do, I think what you need to do is, I think you need to log into this online poster platform.
Okay.
I'll put this in the chat here.
Yeah, I just got that to work.
Okay. And see if that, and on this same page here, it has that presenter checklist that I wrote, that I showed you a minute ago. But this iPoster session, that's what we used at the HamSci workshop this past year. And that's also exactly what I just showed you. I did for my poster for AGU last year. And so what you do is you basically take what you were going to do for your presentation, and instead of having 24 slides, you break it up into like maybe 3 of your slides or 4 of your slides go in a column here. 8 of your slides go in a column here. Another 8 of your slides go in a column here. And you just put your images in, and you put little captions to your image. And so you just tell the story that way.
Okay, well, I'll work at it.
All right.
And what you can do too is with this, if I think I'm a co-author on them. So if you want, you're able to go into the iPoster system, and you can add me as a co-author on the iPoster system, and then I can help you out if you run into trouble with it, because I have had a little bit more practice with the iPoster system.
I think you're already a co-author on mine.
Right, but a co-author on like the main presentation doesn't automatically give me access to the iPoster system.
Okay.
So like if you wanted me to help you with the iPoster at all, you'd have to specifically share it to me once you get into the iPoster system.
Okay,
Mhm.
well, see what I can do here.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you already have, I think if you already have like a PowerPoint presentation made up, which you do, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Then the easiest way to like go from PowerPoint to iPoster, I think, is you have your PowerPoint, you have your pictures. For each picture, write yourself a little caption in the PowerPoint slide deck. And then when you have your iPoster system open, what you do is you just basically copy and paste from the PowerPoint into the iPoster.
Okay, I've never used PowerPoint before, but we'll give it a
Or-
try.
Yeah, okay.
Or the way I did this poster, if you haven't used PowerPoint, then you don't bother starting with it. When I built up this iPoster last year, I actually did it in Word first. So this was 2020 AGU. That was right here. Poster. Solar cycle presentation. So before I created my iPoster, I actually wrote everything out in Word. I wrote my introduction, methodology, and then I pasted my images and my captions in here. I wrote that out in Word first, and then it made it really easy when I went into the iPoster system to copy and paste from my Word document into the iPoster system.
Okay, I used the Open Office presentation tool to develop mine originally.
And that works too.
Okay.
So basically just having something, having something first before you go into the iPoster, I think is a really good way to go. So that when you're working in the iPoster, because the other problem is the iPoster system's buggy. I found that, like, especially during the Hamsci workshop, it was very frustrating. People would put stuff in and it would disappear or not work for some reason. And sometimes people would think they would lose everything. And sometimes the iPoster people could get it back, which was great, but it was also really frustrating. So if you have everything written in a separate document already, and you just have all your pictures and your caption, all your pictures ready and your captions pre-typed, then when you go to the iPoster system, you just copy paste. And if anything goes wrong with the iPoster, you still have a backup of it.
Okay, and that backup though is local. It's not at AGU, right?
That's not an AGU, yeah. Yeah, it's not a perfect system. Not by any stretch.
Yeah, I've had my hands full with the iPoster thing, images disappearing and then reappearing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I have to say I was not impressed with it when we did it for the Hamsci workshop. They come out nicely, like when they're all done and they're working, but getting to that point was harder than I had hoped.
Well, those are prettier than mine.
This took a long time to do.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
This is a whole solar cycle's worth of RBN and WhisperNet data. This is a lot of work. It came out nicely. So if you do need help, email me and I'll do my best to help you.
Well, let me get it into a Word document and send you that and see what you think.
Okay, that sounds good.
I can try that too. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Yeah. Once you get it in the Word document and you kind of, you know what the story is, like you have these headers and you know what figures you're going to put in and what the story is, then it's an easy transfer.
What I can do is I had a separate script that I used for the audio track on the Zoom presentation that accompany the slides, so I can transcribe that into the Word document as well and see how that works.
Yeah, you can do that. There's also a way, if you do have an audio file or if you wanted to record it, they do have a way that you can do like a voiceovers on here, and you can make it all multimedia.
Yeah, the voice, the audio script unfortunately is set at 10 minutes. So if there's a time limitation, that probably won't work. Maybe
Okay.
just transcribing that into the slides would be best.
There, for the iPosters, there's a time limit.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just assuming you.
I don't
5-minute
think
thing.
so.
Oh,
no.
okay.
Okay. So that's the nice thing. The iPosters don't have a 5-minute limit.
Aha.
Okay. So it's the oral presentation. So I think actually being in the poster session is in some ways better, because you don't have the time limit and you're not limited to like how many slides. If you're in the oral session, then you have to get everything down to 5 minutes.
Mm.
So you actually have a little bit more room and a little bit more latitude with the iPosters.
Okay, well, let's see how it flies.
Great.
So have these 15 and 30-minute slots disappeared?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, I'm sorry for any confusion. Like this is constantly like moving under, like it's different from last year. So they've never done this hybrid before. And
Constant flux.
yeah. And like, even as a co-convener, I don't make the rules, like for the Hamsci workshop, I basically make the rules. So I can, for that conference, I was able to decide like how long everything is, and I was organizing things, but that's not how it is here. So it's just a lot more confusing.
Yeah, and some of the information gathering pages in the registration looked rather odd, as well as being apparently marked for you must enter this information, but when you didn't, it didn't matter. It's
Yeah.
weird, strange.
And it's like there's like different ways. Like if you go to the AGU website, there's not like one place that says log in here and you find everything. There's like all these different ways to enter the system. And if you don't enter the right way, you don't find what you're supposed to be looking for. I kind of miss it. Like you used to be able to go to AGU, and like if you're giving an oral presentation, you just show up like the morning of or the day before, you load up your slides, and then you're good to go. But now it looks like they want you to do that plus pre-record something and upload that. So you end up giving the presentation like, I don't know, you do a recording, you do it live, you're supposed to have a 3-slide summary. It's like, okay. Yeah. But I do appreciate you doing this. So thank you. I guess that's it for tonight. We're at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's the witching hour.
Yeah.
It's only 8 o'clock here. 2-hour difference. 3 hours. I keep wanting to join at 6 o'clock my time, which is 3 hours different from 9, even though we've changed time. Arizona does not observe that silliness called daylight savings.
Daylight savings. Yeah. I can't decide if I like daylight savings time or not.
Just you adjust your hours if you want to, or when you get up, or when the
Yeah.
chickens start making noise, or the cat, whatever.
Well, people keep talking about going on permanent daylight savings time, but that doesn't work in the morning. They quickly realize that, oh, it's dark in the morning.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's dark around here.
Right. But yeah, we tried that in the 73, 74 energy crisis, and they realized the kids were going to school in the dark. And they didn't actually save any fuel.
Well, darkness is a problem. Just in the last week, we had a 12-year-old skateboarder have a very unpleasant collision with a car. And the skateboarder was wearing dark clothing, couldn't see him.
Right.
He did not survive.
That's terrible.
Yeah, the darkness is a problem. And I've yelled out the window, "Hey, be careful. You're wearing dark clothing and I can't hardly see you."
Mm-hmm.
In high school, I used to watch the sunrise in first hour class.
I mean, now though, like, I come home at 5 o'clock and it's dark. So, I mean, then you have darkness on the other side of the day.
My thesis is that if we didn't change, people wouldn't notice it. It would change gradually, and people wouldn't complain so much because you'd just get used to it.
Yeah.
Well, Arizona's figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Still haven't heard how it's gone in Europe. The EU has it so that everybody changed to summertime, but then they either could stay on summertime or they could change back. And I think I heard most of them changed back, but now it's permanent. Whichever one they are, they stay that way.
Yeah.
My sundial knows when it's high noon.
Yeah, really.
I really like the memes they have on the internet where they show the people at Stonehenge busy moving the rocks to change for daylight savings time.
I lived 3 years over in France. Boy, I tell you, it's very different up there at that latitude compared to 35 degrees here in northern Arizona.
Oh, yes. I realized at one point that where we are here in New Hampshire is the same latitude as the French Riviera.
Yeah, well, I was in
Everything
central
else is
France.
north of there.
Yeah, I was in the middle of France, some place called Châteauroux. Dad was in the Air Force. And that was before de Gaulle threw everybody out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think
Of
I'll
course,
say
I've been
70.
up to Tromsø, which is well above the Arctic Circle. Still part of the EU. Well, actually, that's not technically EU. They're just friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, up in Svalbard.
Right.
I lived
Svalbard's
up
really
there
up there.
for a semester. That was fun.
Wow.
Yeah. I like the sun going from polar night to the midnight sun was quite fun.
When I lived in Africa on the equator, I was surprised how short the sunrise and sunsets were. It's just,
yeah, the sun goes up and down almost vertically. In fact, I was on the bridge of a ship and the captain was commenting about that, asking all of us whether we thought it was faster or slower. Didn't take too much thought to figure that out. But yeah, the sun goes almost straight up and straight down.
Yeah, well, I've been noticing now that it's near the solstice that twilight takes a long time.
Yes. Especially if you're up fairly far north.
Right.
David, I think you said that you might be able to reconfigure some of your receivers to do the Doppler measurements of WWV.
Yeah, I've asked Jim LaBelle whether we might do that, and he said, yeah, we can look into it.
Yeah.
We have to get our IT guy Terry to.
We'd be interested in
we can
taking you
reprogram
up
it.
on that if you would be willing to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think you would be in a good location to help with the triangulation of these TIDs.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And we desperately need, triangulation and not just a straight line.
Right.
Where are you? Georgia?
Yeah.
He's in New Hampshire.
We're in New Hampshire. We actually have receivers, or can have receivers, in much of the Northeast. Our AM Doppler network goes down to New Jersey. and out to Cornell if it needs to. We've got, some of them are shut down at the moment, but could be reactivated.
So, so those are the ones that you'd be using for the HF as well?
Right. Well, the receiver is fine. You know, it'll go up to 30 megahertz. We just need to probably do something different, certainly on the preamp, because our preamps seep out about 5 megahertz. But we could probably pick up 2.5 and 5. But if we wanted to get, say, 10, we'd have to do a little bit different on the preamp and probably the antenna.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that wouldn't be a big deal.
There's a lot of you people back in the northeast part of the country. I'm way out here in the west. We've got one station in Colorado. Don't have anybody on the Pacific coast that I know of. But we've got Jim. I think he's in Georgia. And we need somebody in, you know, southern Florida or something.
Yeah, I don't think we have many Floridians, and you're right, we don't have any West Coast people either.
Yeah, I'm as close as they come.
Yeah, we
So
have.
what are you?
Well, no, that Tom McDermott is West Coast, but he's not collecting data right now. But he is. I mean, he's in Oregon, so he's very.
Oh, that would be excellent.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So
and you've got.
Now, what are you generally using for an antenna? The T5RV type of dipole?
Me personally?
Well, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using actually for the grape that I'm running at my house, I'm using an off-center fed 80-meter dipole.
Ah, okay.
And I'm using a half wave 80-meter dipole, also fed with ladder line and tuners if needed, or at least a Bellin.
No, we're trying to, well, yeah, I want to see if we can figure out a fairly compact loop antenna that gives adequate sensitivity.
Might try one of those tuned loops or a multi-turn with a preamp.
Yeah, well, what we're using now is a 2-turn, 2 feet diagonal square with a preamp, and we've got it currently tuned for essentially the AM broadcast band because that's what our interest has been, but I can broaden it out, and I've been doing some experiments here, but I haven't gotten a conclusive answer whether that is adequate up to 5 megahertz, which would be my guess. And I need to do a little bit more development, see if we can broaden that out to 10, because we do some 10 megahertz work on our larger loop antennas. So I have preamps that go up that far. And of course, you can get other preamps. The other idea is to use a electric field antenna. An E-field antenna with a 3-foot whip actually can be fairly effective. So I'm gonna, I'll give that a try too and see if that might give us adequate sensitivity. Because of course, you know, I can get WWV with the old Radio Shack time cubes, which is a little, let's see.
I have one.
Yeah, it's about a 6-inch cube with a
whip antenna.
Whip antenna.
Yeah, probably more like
About,
4 inches.
Yeah.
They're pretty small.
Let's see. I even have one that has CHU in it. Though unfortunately the 7 megahertz moved.
Right. Just gonna have to recrystal it.
Right.
I see some pictures of these on the internet here.
Let's see.
Yeah, they moved, and then somebody in New Zealand started complaining, so they had to cut their power back.
This is what the time cube looks like.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I had a weather cube.
Right. Has
Yeah,
this
so-
big whip antenna you pull out. But
Yeah.
that's adequate to pick up WWV much of the time. So
Mhm.
either a small loop or a whip should be able to pick it up.
They were not especially strong here today. I don't know what's going on. I
you
was
check
doing
space
some
weather?
pulse timing. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to say 73. I'm going to go do some paper reading before
Yeah,
bed.
adios, everybody.
So thank you so much and have a great evening.
Okay. Bye.
73.
73.